A local farmer pulled up to his neighbor's house one afternoon and knocked on the door. A young boy, maybe 9 years old, answered. "Hey there, is your dad around?" the farmer asked. "Nope, he went into town," the boy replied. "How about your mom?" "She's with him." The farmer scratched his head. "What about your brother, Tommy? Is he here?" "No, sir, he's with them too." The farmer shifted awkwardly on the porch, clearly uncomfortable. After a long pause, the boy spoke up. "Well, I know where Dad keeps his tools if you need to borrow one, or I can leave him a message." The farmer hesitated, then said, "Actually, this is something I need to talk to your dad about. It's about your brother Tommy. He got my daughter Mary pregnant." The boy blinked, then nodded thoughtfully. "Huh," he said. "You'll definitely need to talk to my dad about that." He paused, then added, "I know he charges $500 for breeding the bulls, and $150 for the pig, but I don't have a clue what he asked for from Tommy." A couple in their early 60s was out celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary at a cozy little restaurant. Candlelight, soft music, everything was perfect. Suddenly, a shimmer of light appeared at their table, and a graceful little fairy hovered before them. "You two have stayed loyal and loving for over 3 decades, she said. "As a reward, I'll grant each of you one wish." The wife beamed. "I've always dreamed of seeing the world with my husband. I wish for us to travel together, first class all the way." The fairy waved her wand, and poof, a pair of luxury cruise tickets appeared. Then the fairy turned to the husband. He paused, then grinned sheepishly. "Well," he said, "this is a rare chance. So I'd like a wife who's 30 years younger than me." The fairy raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She spun her wand again, and poof, he was instantly 92 years old. An elegant older lady walked up to the bar aboard a cruise ship, her pearls shining almost as brightly as her smile. "I'll have a scotch," she told the bartender, "with just 2 drops of water." As he poured her drink, she added, "I'm celebrating my 80th birthday today." "Well, happy birthday," the bartender said, sliding the glass over. "This one's on the house." Moments later, a woman sitting nearby raised her glass and said, "Let me buy your next one. 80 deserves 2 drinks at least." The birthday lady smiled. "Why, thank you, dear bartender. Another scotch and again just 2 drops of water." Not long after, a gentleman on her other side chimed in. "I'd be honored to get you a drink as well." "Well, aren't you sweet," she said. "Bartender, 1 more scotch with 2 drops of water, please." As he handed over the 3rd glass, the bartender leaned in and said, "Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, why always 2 drops of water?" The woman looked him straight in the eye and said with a wink, "Sonny, at my age, I've learned how to hold my liquor. It's holding my water that's the real challenge." A gentle elderly woman called the hospital front desk and asked sweetly, "Hi, dear. Could someone please tell me how a patient is doing?" The receptionist responded warmly, "Of course. I'll need the patient's name and room number, please." With a shaky voice, the woman replied, "Margaret Ellis, room 408. "1 moment," the receptionist said cheerfully. "Let me check with the nurses' station for you." After a short pause, she came back on the line. "Good news! Margaret is doing just fine. Her vitals are steady, she ate lunch, and the doctor is planning to discharge her tomorrow morning." There was a long sigh of relief on the other end. "Oh, thank heavens," the woman said. "You have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you so much." The receptionist, touched by her gratitude, asked, "Is Margaret your sister or a close friend?" The woman chuckled softly. "Actually, I am Margaret Ellis. I'm just tired of nobody telling me anything around here." A young man burst into the confessional in tears. "Forgive me, Father. I've fallen into temptation." Priest, "Take a deep breath, my child. What happened?" Young man, "First I stayed late at the library. The rain poured, and I had to wait with the librarian. One thing led to another, and I slipped." Priest, softly, "That's a sin, but you can atone. Say 5 Hail Marys." The young man dabbed his eyes, but continued. "Then an elderly neighbor asked for computer help. Storm clouds rolled in. I waited out the downpour, and I slipped again." The priest sighed. "Add 10 more Hail Marys and keep your heart strong." Through fresh tears, the man whispered, "Yesterday at the barber shop, I was his last customer. The skies opened up. I waited. And Father, I slipped once more. The priest looked toward the window, saw dark clouds gathering, and stood up. My son, he said, handing back the screen divider, I think you'd better get out of here before it starts raining. While standing near the edge of a cruise ship deck, an elderly woman clutched her wide-brimmed hat with both hands. The ocean breeze was fierce, and the wind kept tugging at everything it could grab. A polite but flustered gentleman walked up and said, Excuse me, ma'am. I don't mean to be rude, but your dress is flying up quite a bit. She smiled, unbothered. Oh, I know, but if I let go of this hat, it'll be halfway to the Bahamas. He hesitated, then whispered, Well, I hate to point this out, but you're not wearing any underwear. The woman raised an eyebrow, looked down briefly, then met his eyes and replied, Son, I'm 76 years old. There's nothing down there I'm trying to hide, but this hat, I just bought it. An elderly lady named Elsie was patiently waiting to pull into a parking spot when, out of nowhere, a young man in a shiny red BMW zoomed around her and slipped right into the space she'd been waiting for. Fuming, Elsie walked up to him and said through clenched teeth, I was just about to park there. The young man smirked and replied arrogantly, Well, that's what happens when you're young and quick. Elsie didn't say a word. She walked back to her car, reversed a few feet, then floored the accelerator, slamming straight into his brand-new BMW. The man ran over, horrified. What the hell did you do that for? Elsie calmly stepped out, gave him a sweet smile, and said, That's what happens when you're old and rich. A father and son were swimming in the pool one sunny afternoon. The father, trying to be funny, said to his son, Hey, kiddo, want to see a cool trick? The son, excited, replied, Yeah, Dad, show me! The father then proceeded to swim underwater, flapping his arms and legs like a chicken. The son laughed and laughed, thinking it was the silliest thing he'd ever seen. But then, the father suddenly stopped flapping and sank to the bottom of the pool. The son, thinking his dad was still joking around, laughed even harder. But when his dad didn't come up for air after a few seconds, the son started to get worried. He swam down to the bottom of the pool and tapped his dad on the shoulder. Dad, wake up, the joke's over. The father, still playing dead, didn't budge. The son started to panic, thinking his dad had actually drowned. Just as the son was about to swim back up to the surface to get help, the father suddenly sprang to life and shouted, Boo! The son was so startled that he swam away as fast as he could, leaving his dad laughing hysterically at the bottom of the pool. As the son climbed out of the pool, shaking his head in disbelief, the father swam up to the surface and said, What? I thought it was a great joke. The son just rolled his eyes and said, Dad, you're such a pool fool. One day, a farmer decided that he wanted to expand his chicken farm. In order to do this, he needed a stud rooster. He asked around his fellow farmers, and the general consensus was that the best rooster was from a faraway town. His name was Randy. The farmer went to this faraway town and met with Randy's owner. The owner confirmed that Randy was indeed the best, but would come at an expensive price. After much deliberation, the farmer decided to invest in Randy. When the farmer got home, he sat down with Randy and explained what he needed and told him that while he expected Randy to perform, he also expected Randy to pace himself. The farmer released Randy in the hen house, and Randy went wild. Feathers were flying, and Randy was servicing every hen in the house. The farmer reiterated to Randy the necessity of pace. The next day, Randy not only went flying through the hen house, but also went after the dog, the cat, the sheep, a fox, and several other accessible animals. The farmer was outraged. Randy, he said, you can't possibly last at this pace. Slow down, I need you for a long time. Well, the next day, the inevitable happened. Randy was lying in the field looking like death was soon coming. Buzzards were circling around and slowly getting closer. The farmer watched his dying investment and then went up to Randy and said, How could you? I asked you to pace yourself and now you're a spent force. Slowly, Randy opened one eye and pointed to the sky, saying, Shh, they're getting closer. A woman goes to her doctor's office to discuss a strange development. She has discovered a green spot on the inside of each thigh. They won't wash off, they won't scrape off, and they seem to be getting worse. The doctor assures her he'll get to the bottom of the problem and tells her not to worry until he gets the tests back. A few days later, the woman's phone rings. Much to her relief, it's the doctor. She immediately begs to know what's causing the spots. The doctor says, "You're perfectly healthy. There's no problem, but I'm wondering, was your boyfriend that Harley guy in the waiting room?" The woman stammers, "Why, yes, but how did you know?" "Tell him his earrings aren't real gold." Fred is 32 years old, and he is still single. One day a friend asked, "Why aren't you married? Can't you find a woman who will be a good wife?" Fred replied, "Actually, I found many women I wanted to marry, but when I bring them home to meet my parents, my mother doesn't like them." His friend thinks for a moment and says, "I've got the perfect solution. Just find a girl who's just like your mother." A few months later, they meet again, and his friend says, "Did you find the perfect girl? Did your mother like her?" With a frown on his face, Fred answers, "Yes, I found the perfect girl. She was just like my mother. You were right. My mother liked her very much." The friend said, "Then what's the problem?" Fred replied, "My father doesn't like her." Our teacher asked what my favorite animal was, and I said, "Fried chicken." She said I wasn't funny, but she couldn't have been right because everyone else laughed. My parents told me to always tell the truth. I did. Fried chicken is my favorite animal. I told my dad what happened, and he said my teacher was probably a member of PETA. He said they love animals very much. I do too, especially chicken, pork, and beef. Anyway, my teacher sent me to the principal's office. I told him what happened, and he laughed too. Then he told me not to do it again. The next day in class, my teacher asked me what my favorite live animal was. I told her it was chicken. She asked me why, so I told her it was because you could make them into fried chicken. She sent me back to the principal's office. He laughed and told me not to do it again. I don't understand. My parents taught me to be honest, but my teacher doesn't like it when I am. Today, my teacher asked us to tell her what famous person we admire most. I told her Colonel Sanders, and guess where I am now? An old man and his wife have gone to bed. After lying there a few minutes, the old man farts and says, 7 points. His wife rolls over and says, "What in the world was that?" The old man replied, "Fart football." A few minutes later, the wife lets one go and says, "Touchdown, tie score." After about 5 minutes, the old man farts again and says, "Touchdown, I'm ahead 14-7. Not to be outdone, the wife rips another one and says, "Touchdown, tie score." 5 seconds go by and she lets out a squeaker and says, "Field goal, I lead 17-14. Now the pressure's on and the old man refuses to get beat by a woman, so he strains real hard but to no avail. Realizing a defeat is totally unacceptable, he gives it everything he has, but instead of farting, he poops the bed. The wife looks and says, "What was that?" The old man replied, "Half-time, switch sides." A blonde tried to sell her old car. She was having a lot of problems selling it because the car had 250,000 miles on it. One day, she told her problem to a friend she worked with at a salon. Her friend told her, "There is a possibility to make the car easier to sell, but it's not legal." "That doesn't matter," replied the blonde. "If only I can sell the car." "Okay," said the blonde's friend. "Here is the address of a friend of mine. He owns a car repair shop. Tell him I sent you and he will turn the counter in your car back to 50,000 miles, then it should not be a problem to sell your car anymore." The following weekend, the blonde made the trip to the mechanic. About 1 month after that, the friend asked her, "Did you sell your car?" "No," replied the blonde. "Why should I? It only has 50,000 miles on it." Back in the dusty days of the Wild West, there was a young cowboy named Jace who had one burning dream, to become the fastest gunslinger west of the Mississippi. He practiced day and night, quick draws, target shooting, spinning his revolver like a circus act. But deep down, he knew something was missing. He just wasn't there yet. One Saturday night, Jace wandered into a saloon in a one-horse town, frustrated and covered in trail dust. That's when he saw him, the legend himself, old Silas McGraw, sitting quietly at the bar with a whiskey in hand. The man was long retired, but stories of his speed could still hush a room. Jace nervously walked over, bought him a drink, and said, "Sir, all I want in this world is to be the best. Think you could give me some pointers?" Silas looked him over, slow and squinty-eyed. Then he said, "First off, your holster's too high. Let it ride lower on your leg. Makes for a cleaner draw." Jace adjusted it on the spot, stood up, drew his pistol faster than he ever had before, and shot the feather off a woman's hat halfway across the room. "Hot dang!" He grinned. "Got another tip?" "Sure," said Silas. "Take a knife and shave a notch in your holster where the hammer catches. Cuts down the drag." Jace did it right then and there. Drew again, snap, shot the cork off a bottle behind the bar. "Whew, that's slick," he said, grinning. "Got any more tricks?" Silas pointed to a rusty old can in the corner. "See that axle grease over there? Slather your gun in it every inch." Jace raised an eyebrow but did as he was told, smearing the thick grease all over his revolver. He looked back at Silas. "Now will that make me even faster?" Silas leaned in with a smirk. "Not a bit." Then, "What's it for?" The old man drained his glass and said, "Because when Big Hank, the actual fastest gun in the West, finds out you've been showing off and nearly shot his girlfriend's hat, he's going to take that greasy revolver and shove it somewhere the sun don't shine. And that grease is the only thing that's going to help you sleep tonight." A man walked into the ladies' department. He shyly walked up to the woman behind the counter and said, "I'd like to buy a bra for my wife." "What type of bra?" asked the clerk. "Type?" inquired the man. "There is more than one type?" "Look around," said the saleslady as she showed a sea of bras in every shape, size, color, and material. "Actually, even with all of this variety, there are really only 3 types of bras," replied the sales clerk. Confused, the man asked, "Only 3, what are they?" The saleslady replied, "The Catholic type, the Salvation Army type, and the Baptist type. Which one do you need?" Still confused, the man asked, "What is the difference between them?" The lady said, "It is quite simple. The Catholic type supports the masses, the Salvation Army type lifts up the fallen, and the Baptist type makes mountains out of molehills." One morning, a husband returns to the cabin after several hours of fishing and decides to take a nap. Although not familiar with the lake, the wife decides to take the boat out since it is such a beautiful day. She motors out a short distance, anchors, and reads her book. Along comes a game warden in his boat. He pulls up alongside the woman and says, "Good morning, ma'am. What are you doing?" "Reading a book," she replies, thinking, "Isn't that obvious?" "You're in a restricted fishing area," he informs her. "I'm sorry, officer, but I'm not fishing. I'm reading." "Yes, but you have all the equipment. I'll have to write you up a ticket." "For reading a book?" she replies. "You're in a restricted fishing area," he informs her again. "But officer, I'm not fishing. I'm reading." "Yes, but you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start at any moment. I'll have to write you up a ticket and you'll have to pay a fine." "If you do that, I'll have to charge you with sexual assault," says the woman. "But I haven't even touched you," says the game warden. "That's true, but you have all the equipment. For all I know, you could start at any moment. Have a nice day, ma'am." And he immediately departed. The boy and the banker, a young boy, puts $100 in the bank every single day. One day, the boss at the bank noticed and asked, "Hey, buddy, why do you keep dropping $100 in here every day?" The kid says, "Can we talk in your office?" The boss says yes, and they go to his office. Then the kids spill the beans. "Well, I make a bet every day with someone new that I can kiss my right eye." The boss laughs and says, "No way you can do that." The kid smirks. "Want to bet?" The manager agrees, and quick as a wink, the kid takes out his fake eye and kisses it. The boss feels kind of silly and gives him $100, but he wants it back. So the kid says, "Okay, but with a twist. I'm pretty sure that you're wearing red girly panties. If I'm wrong, I'll give you back your $100 plus another $100. Thinking he's too smart, the boss agrees. The kid adds, "But before you drop your pants, we need 10 witnesses to make it official." The boss gathers his team, and after taking his pants off, he feels very proud to have won $100. Then he notices the kid is all smiles about losing money. Confused, he asks, "Why are you happy about losing your cash?" The kid grins. Well, I had a bet with your team about how fast I could get you to drop your pants. A farmer had 5 female pigs. Times were hard, so he decided to take them to the county fair and sell them. At the fair, he met another farmer who owned 5 male pigs. After talking a bit, they decided to mate the pigs and split everything 50-50ths. The farmers lived 60 miles apart, so they agreed to drive 30 miles each and find a field in which to let the pigs mate. The first morning, the farmer with the female pigs got up at 5 a.m., loaded the pigs into the family station wagon, which was the only vehicle he had, and drove the 30 miles. While the pigs were mating, he asked the other farmer, "How will I know if they are pregnant?" The other farmer replied, "If they're lying in the grass tomorrow morning, they're pregnant. If they're in the mud, they're not." The next morning, the pigs were rolling in the mud, so he hosed them off, loaded them into the family station wagon again, and proceeded to try again. This continued each morning for more than a week. Both farmers were worn out. The next morning, he was too tired to get out of bed. He called to his wife, "Honey, please look outside and tell me whether the pigs are in the mud or in the grass." "Neither," yelled his wife. "They're in the station wagon, and one of them is honking the horn." A farmer took his truck in for repairs. The local mechanics couldn't do it while he waited, so as he didn't live far, he said he would just walk home. On the way home, he stopped at the hardware store and bought a bucket and a gallon of paint. He then stopped by the feed store and picked up a couple of chickens and a goose. However, struggling outside the store, he now had a problem: how to carry all his purchases home. While he was scratching his head, he was approached by a little old lady who told him she was lost. "Can you tell me how to get to 1603 Mockingbird Lane?" she asked. "Well," said the farmer, "as a matter of fact, my farm is very close to that house. I would gladly walk you there, but I can't carry this lot." "Why don't you put the can of paint in the bucket?" suggested the little old lady. "Carry the bucket in one hand, put a chicken under each arm, and carry the goose in your other hand." "Why, thank you very much," he said, and proceeded to walk the old girl home. On the way, he said, "Let's take my shortcut and go down this alley. We'll be there in no time." The little old lady looked him over cautiously and then said, "I am a lonely widow without a husband to defend me. How do I know that when we get in the alley, you won't hold me up against the wall, pull up my skirt, and have your way with me?" "Holy smokes, lady," the farmer said. "I'm carrying a bucket, a gallon of paint, 2 chickens, and a goose. How in the world could I possibly hold you up against the wall and do that?" "Well, if you were to do such a thing," the old lady replied, "you would set the goose down, cover him with the bucket, put the paint on top of the bucket, and I would hold the chickens." A few days ago, I received a friend request on Facebook from an attractive guy about 29 years old. I was curious. I wanted to know why someone that young wanted to be my Facebook friend. I accepted it. Then he started sending private messages. He was very kind. He called her beautiful. He asked my age. I'm not a liar, so I told him and reminded him I'm quite a bit senior. And I let talks a bit because, truth be told, flattery isn't all that bad. We keep talking for a while, and within a short time, he asked if we could talk about adult things. I said okay. Then he replied with a face like this. He said, "Thank you, babe, you start?" So I did. I told him adult things like my hips and knees were hurting. My back acts up when it is cold outside. I explained I have crazy insomnia. I toss and turn the entire night, and that I often have leg cramps, especially when I try to sleep. I mentioned the scars from multiple surgeries and the limp I have from an old injury, and of course I had to throw in the need for daily fiber supplements to prevent passing gas. Can't forget that one. I was waiting for him to answer me. He blocked me. He wanted to talk about things and then didn't take the heat. I think I'm just a bit too much woman for him to handle. One hot June day, we found an old, straggly cat at the door. She was a sorry sight. Starving, dirty, smelled terrible, skinny, and hair all matted down. We felt sorry for her and put her in a carrier and took her to the vet. She had no name, so we named her Pussy. The vet decided to keep her for a day or so and said he would let us know when we could come and get her. My husband, the complainer, said, "Okay, but don't forget to wash her. She stinks." He and my vet don't see eye to eye. He calls my husband El Cheapo. Bob calls him El Takeo. They love to hate each other. Next day, Bob had an appointment with his doctor who was located next door to the vet. And the office was full of people in the waiting room. A side door opened, and in leaned the vet, who had obviously seen Bob arrive, and he looked straight at him and said, "Your old lady's pussy is finally clean and shaved. She now smells like a rose. And by the way, I think she's pregnant. God knows who the father is." And he closed the door. A man goes to the doctor. He says, "Doc, you have to check my leg. Something's wrong. Just put your ear up to my thigh. You'll hear it." The doctor cautiously placed his ear to the man's thigh, only to hear, "Give me $20. I really need $20. "I've never seen or heard anything like this before. How long has this been going on?" the doctor asked. "That's nothing, Doc. Put your ear to my knee." The doctor put his ear to the man's knee and heard it say, "Man, I really need $10. Just lend me $10. "Sir, I really don't know what to tell you. I've never seen anything like this." The doctor was dumbfounded. "Wait, Doc, that's not all. There's more. Just put your ear up to my ankle," the man urged him. The doctor did as the man said and was blown away to hear his ankle plead, "Please, I just need $5. Lend me $5, please, if you will." "I have no idea what to tell you. There's nothing about it in my books," he said, as he frantically searched all his medical reference books. "I can make a well-educated guess, though," he continued. "Based on life and all my previous experience, I can tell you that your leg seems to be broken in 3 places. Jimmy and Maddie, ages 8 and 4, were excessively mischievous. They were always getting into trouble, and their parents knew if any mischief occurred in their town, the 2 boys were probably involved. The boys' mother heard that a preacher in town had been successful in disciplining children, so she asked if he would speak with her boys. The preacher agreed, but he asked to see them individually. The mother sent Maddie in the morning and planned to send Jimmy to see the preacher in the afternoon. The preacher, a huge man with a deep, booming voice, sat the younger boy down and asked him sternly, "Do you know where God is, son?" The boy's mouth dropped open, but he made no response, sitting there wide-eyed with his mouth hanging open. So the preacher repeated the question in an even sterner tone, "Where is God?" Again, Maddie made no attempt to answer. The preacher raised his voice even more and shook his finger in the boy's face and bellowed, "Where is God?" The boy screamed and bolted from the room, ran directly home and dove into his closet, slamming the door behind him. When his older brother found him in the closet, he asked, "What happened?" Maddie, gasping for breath, replied, "We are in big trouble this time. God is missing and they think we did it. Little Johnny's mother was not sure her son was paying attention in Sunday school. When they got home, she asked him, "What did you learn today?" He said they got taught the Joanna and the whale story. Upon her additional prodding, he recounted the following. Joanna lived in Miami. One day she went deep-sea fishing in the Bermuda Triangle, and it got really stormy. The charter boat captain freaked out and pitched her off the boat because her line was tangled on a really big fish. At this juncture, Mom put her hands on her hips, gave Johnny the look, and said, "Go on." She didn't hook a fish at all. It was really a CIA submarine. The captain took her to Cuba and told her to tell Castro to be good or Uncle Sam would drone him. Castor agreed, and everybody lived happily after. Totally chagrined, Mom dropped the hammer. "Is that really the story you were taught?" Johnny cast his gaze to the floor, shuffled his feet, and finally came clean. "Not exactly, but if I told you the preacher's story, you wouldn't believe it." A priest was about to finish his tour of duty and was leaving his mission in the jungle, where he had spent years teaching the natives, when he realized that the one thing he never taught them was how to speak English. So he takes the chief for a walk in the forest. He points to a tree and says to the chief, "This is a tree." The chief looks at the tree and grunts, "Tree." The priest is pleased with the response. They walk a little further and he points to a rock and says, "Oh, this is a rock." Hearing this, the chief looks and grunts, "Rock." The priest was really getting enthusiastic about the results when he heard a rustling in the bushes. As they peek over the top, he sees a couple of natives in the midst of heavy sexual activity. The priest is really flustered and quickly responds, "Man riding a bike." The chief looks at the couple briefly, pulls out his blowgun, and kills them both. The priest goes ballistic and yells at the chief that he has spent years teaching the tribe how to be civilized and be kind to each other. So how could he kill these people in cold blood that way? The chief replied, "My bike."